Hello, brilliant entrepreneur. It's Tash Corbin here, and welcome to another episode of the Heart-Centered Business Podcast. This is episode number 324, which means you can find all the relevant links and show notes for today's episode over at tashcorbin.com/324. In today's episode, I'm answering the question, how do you leverage without derailing your existing business? Now, this is something that I think a lot of people in my audience are particularly conscious of, because I'm very often telling the story about how my first course launch almost broke my business. So if you want to make sure that adding leverage to your business model is a net positive result, this is a really important episode for us to dive into together. So let's do that. I'm Tash Corbin, and this is the Heart-Centered Business Podcast. Okay, so I'm not going to tell the entire story in this podcast episode, but if you haven't heard the story of how Takeoff almost broke my business when I first launched it, feel free to reach out and I can send you a little summary. But in a nutshell, when I first launched my first ever course, the Takeoff program, I almost broke my business. I went from $20,000 and $15,000 months to a $4,000 launch, and then less than $1,000 the month after launch. I almost broke my business. Now, lucky for you, I make mistakes so that you don't have to. And I have 5 big important things for us to talk about to ensure that adding leverage to your business model is going to be a net positive. It's going to be a win rather than derail your current business trajectory. So I've got 5 sort of pitfalls, you might call them, or 5 potential missteps that can derail your business when you're adding leverage to your model. And so by knowing what they are and having some idea around how to avoid them, hopefully we will make leveraging a great decision for you moving forward, because ultimately leverage is sexy, right? Leveraged products are amazing. I am so happy that I have the Takeoff program and the Leverage and Launch program and my accelerator. They are how I serve the most people. They are how I make the most money in my business, but it wasn't always that way. And we want to make sure, especially if you're currently making a bit of money with one-to-one clients, we want to make sure that we don't lose that without replacing the income or exceeding that income, or stop the momentum that that is creating for our business as well. So strap yourself in. We've got 5 to dive into, and I want to make sure that I give you all the information necessary so that you can, 1, avoid the mistakes that I made, but also just make sure that you're all set and ready to go. Okay. So number 1, little trap. You build your product based on theory, either because you haven't actually sold anything that delivers that outcome before, or you change your niche when you move into a leveraged product. Okay, so there's 2 examples there, but the trap that you might fall into is building your leveraged product on theory. When I say leveraged product, I mean a course or a membership or a VIP group program, or moving into a agency model, or, books or self-study stuff, right? So anything where you can deliver one-to-many is a leveraged product. So I'll keep using the term leveraged product. Okay. So when you are looking at adding a leveraged product to your business, some people make the assumption, well, I'm not getting one-to-one sales, or I don't really want to work to one-to-one forever. So I'm just going to dive straight into group programs, or I'm just going to drive straight into low ticket offers, or I'm just going to drive straight into a group thing. And the risk of that is that you haven't actually got any proof that people will pay you for the outcome that you promise from that leveraged product. And so you build it completely based on your assumptions. You build it completely based on theory. You might, if you're lucky, build it based on feedback from your audience, but there's a big difference between someone saying, yeah, I'd buy a membership that did X, Y, and Z, and then you saying, okay, I built a membership that does X, Y, and Z, and then going, well, actually, I don't really need that. That's fine, right? There's a huge gap between those two things, and it happens a lot. So we don't want to build a leverage product on theory, yeah? So the way we avoid that situation is get people to buy something from you that delivers that outcome, but without having to pre-build a big thing. So you can go straight into leverage, but build as you go, right? Like sell it before you build it. You can also deliver that outcome one-to-one. So you could start by offering the exact same outcome, but people can work with you on 6 one-to-one sessions, or they can work with you in a sort of package of sessions with you, or they could do it in a different way, one-to-one, right? So that takes out the theory element. But then what can happen is people do sell one-to-one, and their VIP package is a great price. You know, they put the price up a couple of times. Let's say your VIP package is $2,500 now. And on every third or fourth sales call that you do, people say to you, oh, well, look, it's not a priority for me right now. And like, it's a bit out of my budget as well. And so you start theorizing that, oh, there's another niche, right? There's another niche of people who aren't actually able to invest at that level, but that I could deliver this outcome at this level for this investment. Or you decide that there's another, like off in another direction, group of people that you want to sell your group program for. But again, you haven't actually proven that those people will pay for that outcome. So when it comes to moving from a one-to-one model into adding leverage to your model, my advice is they should be the same niche. And actually, the promise should be the same outcome. It's just that for some people, they would rather invest in working with you one-to-one to get that outcome. And for some people, a group program is the best opportunity for them to get that outcome. But it's the same outcome. So an example I would give here is I did the Facebook Live talking about this, and the amazing Janet Willis was on that call. And Janet is a personal trainer. And she currently already has leverage in her business because she does one-to-one personal training and she does group programs. But Janet is building an online business. And in her online business, she's currently working one-to-one with people in a high-touch VIP intensive. And in that, she focuses on helping people with their nutrition, helping them with their mindset, and helping them with their movement, right? Nutrition, mindset, and movement. Those people, their goal is to lose weight. It's to fit into their jeans that they used to be able to fit into 5 years ago. So Janet might decide, based on totally on theory, well, you know, those people are spending $2,000 or whatever it is to work with me in a VIP capacity. But the people who want to work with me online in a group, well, maybe they just want to do exercise classes, right? That's all they want. They just want to do exercise classes. They just want to be able to squeeze in fitness. That's their goal. They just want to squeeze in exercise, you know, in little pieces in the day. So you could assume, like, okay, well, let's go and build this like exercise fitnessy thing, right, as a leverage product. But Janet actually doesn't have any proof that online clients think that investing in squeezing exercise into my day is a good idea, nor has she got any proof people will pay for that. So rather than build on theory, we want to build on proof. Build on proof. Now, there are thousands of ways to get proof of concept before you leverage. But a lot of people ignore all of those ways and simply decide, no, I've decided I know what my audience wants. I know what will help get them their goal. I know exactly what their objections are going to be. And they just build everything based on theory. And that is where they might get themselves into trouble, because when you build on theory, the other risk that you have is that you're pre-building, right? You're building it based on theory. So you do a bunch of work. You write sales pages, you create modules, you write sales emails, you build your webinars to sell it, all based on your assumptions and your theories, and you have no proof yet. So then you put 2-3 months into launching, you roll out your 2 lead magnets and you do this big launch. What happens if you make no sales? All that time, all that energy, all that building is for nothing. What happens if you make one sale? Maybe you make one sale at $97. Do you run that group program for one person at $97? Do you delay the launch? Like there's ways that we can recover from that, but the mistake or the trap that they fell into that caused the need to fix or rescue something was that it was all built on theory. So trap number 1, building on theory. Trap number 2, pricing dysmorphia. Now, any kind of dysmorphia is your perception not matching reality. And for a lot of people, their main driver for wanting to create a group program is they've had a bunch of people tell them that their VIP package is too expensive. So they have these beliefs and these not necessarily real perceptions that their audience needs something super cheap. The cheaper, the better, because they're making assumptions about what their audience is willing to invest. They're making assumptions about how much people can afford to spend. They're making assumptions about how valuable people see things as, and those perceptions are not real. It is dysmorphic. Right? So again, let's talk about, online classes. You might make the assumption that your ideal client, the best thing for them is going to be the cheapest thing. So you create this membership and it's only $25 a month and you get to come to 5 classes if you want to. And you get, 2 of those classes are on nutrition and 3 of those classes are on exercise. And then there's a bonus mindset, this every single month. You might assume that is going to be the best because you've got all this pricing dysmorphia, when in fact you have been collecting this amazing audience of people who, for them, actually, the most valuable transformation they could experience is you get me from where I am to where I want to be in the shortest time possible. So joining your $25 a month membership psychologically and consciously and subconsciously says to me, I'm going to have to be doing this for a very long time in order to get the results. Whereas if you did a 12-week program, in 12 weeks, I'm set up, I'm ready, I'm done. See the difference and don't make assumptions and don't make all your decisions based on pricing dysmorphia. I have been in group programs before where I wish they had tripled the price and doubled the attention that I got. I just absolutely wish that I could have. People build these things trying to make it, how cheap can I make it? How cheap can I make it? And that's actually not what your audience wants. If they see the transformation that you facilitate as valuable, then they will invest in that transformation. And your assumptions about it needing to be as cheap as possible will often result in you creating something that doesn't always deliver the outcome quickly and effectively enough, because you're trying to do it in the most passive way possible, the most leveraged way possible, because you're not being paid enough to deliver on it. So rather than build based on a price point you're trying to work towards, instead get very clear on your niche, get very clear on the outcome that they are wanting to invest in achieving, and think about what is the best way to deliver on that outcome for your audience, and then price accordingly. So, you might find that when you first build it, you think, well, the best way to deliver is X amount of sessions and we would have to have all of this, and you throw in all the bells and whistles, and then you price it out and you think, no, right? It's actually not a realistic price point for my market. So you might need to scrub some of that out, but ultimately people are buying for the transformation. They're not buying for the number of modules. They're not buying for the number of live calls with you. They're not buying for the number of bonuses or, the expert interviews or the workbooks that go into your leveraged product. In most cases, more content equals more work. More bonuses equals more work in order for me to get from where I am to where I want to be. So Pricing dysmorphia, when you create your leverage product, can sometimes mean that you run to the lowest common denominator, right? You're running down to the cheapest price possible and not to the best outcome possible or the fastest outcome possible, right? But pricing dysmorphia can also mean that you don't have the capacity or the time or the build that's required to actually deliver on the result as well. So pricing dysmorphia, it's really not a good one. Number 3 is when focused on creating leverage in your business, you're focused on your drivers only, self-drivers only. So, I see this so much. People are saying, I need to create a leverage product because I don't have enough time. I cannot take on any more one-to-one clients. I need to increase my income levels. I need to have something scalable. I cannot be doing sales calls anymore. I this, I that, I this, I that. Now, that's totally fine if that is one of your drivers for moving into a leveraged model, but that cannot be the only thing that is helping you make decisions about your leverage. Why? Because you start to lose sight of the benefits of working with you in a leveraged way for your clients. Some clients would much prefer to work with you in a one-to-one way, and they're willing to pay a premium to be able to do that. But some of your clients actually will get a better result if they work with you in a group. It's not just about you. It's also about your audience, right? I had someone come to me and say, it has to be a membership because I cannot keep going out there and launching this thing. I need people to keep paying me month on month without me ever having to do a launch again. Now, think about all of the risks that you are taking on board when that is the blinkered reasons why you're picking that model, right? And the risk that you're eventually going to face with a membership in that memberships need consistent new members. They do in order to survive and thrive. And what happens when after your first or second month of running your membership, you have a couple of people want to cancel their membership? You are going to resent them so crazily, right? And you're going to end up back at square one. So it's not just about your self-drivers. There are reasons why a leverage model is a better option for your audience, and different leverage models suit different audiences and deliver in different ways. So think about your drivers for wanting to leverage, but also think about what's in it for your audience if you leverage. And not just like, I'll be less stressed, so I'll be able to do a better job, but actually what is definitely in it for them. Not just about like what they get of you, but what is in it for them if you are leveraging. So sometimes it's about making it more cost effective for your audience to invest and work with you. Sometimes there's more benefits to working with you in a group because of the access to the rest of the group. Sometimes there's more benefits to your audience because it means that they can get from where they are to where they want to be faster because they're not waiting for the next session with you. They can just go and churn through the video modules and get themselves to the end. Some people learn better when they can stop and rewind and play it again. Some people learn better when they can listen to something over and over and over again. Some people need to be learning in a group so that that little competitive spirit comes in and they want to be the teacher's pet. So don't just focus on your reasons for leveraging. The other reason why this is important to me is because I see so many people out there promoting group programs and it's almost like you're apologizing. Oh, I got so busy. This is the only way to work with me. If you want to get the outcome, look, this is the only way that I can do this because I'm just so busy. I needed to do this. And it's like almost like you're justifying offering a group program instead of seeing the value in a group program for your audience. So your messaging becomes quagmired in selfish reasoning that somehow comes across as apologetic, but also just reminds us that you only did it for you. And is that really going to help you get more sales and have people excited to do this program with you? I don't think so. So don't just focus on your drivers and reasons for leverage. Think about what's in it for your audience as well and build for their benefit. Number 4, leveraging to disconnect from sales. Now, I know. Sales in your sleep is the reason why most leverage gurus and launch gurus tell you you should have a leverage product in your business, right? You can make sales in your sleep. You can also sell VIP packages in your sleep, by the way. I've had VIP clients pay their invoices while I was sleeping. That's totally a thing. But anyway, right? But what it is it's trying to make you think that if you have a group program or if you have a membership, your website will do the selling for you. Your emails will do all the selling for you. Your pre-recorded webinar will do all the selling for you, and you'll never have to have a sales conversation again. However, especially when you're first creating a leveraged product, the one-to-one connection that you have with your audience in that sales process gives you all of the information and insight that you need to, one, convert them into a paying client, and two, make sure that your launch assets like sales pages and emails have the information in them that people need in order to make an informed decision about whether they want to buy from you or not. Your first launch of your group program is going to be built a little bit on theory, right? You'll have some proof of concept from what you've sold before, or you'll have some proof of concept from people signing up for a waitlist, or the other thousands of ways that we get proof of concept. But ultimately, you'll make a near enough guess of like, here's the key touch points that I need to make sure I cover in my launch. Here's the key messages that will help people understand exactly what's included. Here's the key messages on what the promise is and what we're going to achieve together. Here's the key value proposition and the before and the after, right? So you can map all of that out based on what you know of your audience and your theories. But you might have something on your sales page that 90 people go to your sales page and 89 of them see this one little sentence and think, oh, no, that's actually not for my kind of business, or no, that actually won't work for me. And they go away. You don't know who those 89 people are. And you cannot ask them why they haven't purchased, right? You have no further access to them unless you retarget them with Facebook ads using your pixel. And heaven knows how crazy the pixels are now with the whole iOS 14 update, but we won't go down that path, right? So when you disconnect from the sales process too early, you actually lose all of the insight and information you need to make sure you get good conversion rates. So when it comes to the first few times that you leverage, I actually recommend that you don't disconnect from sales, that you actually stay connected in that sales process, that you allow people to book a quick chat with you to talk about the program, that you invite people to send you emails, that you do live lead magnets, live webinars. Don't pre-record it and pretend it's live. Like, get in the room with your people, because the questions that they ask, the reasons that they say that it's not right fit for them, the way that they look when you mention something will give you an insight into what your assumptions are and what they need to know, what they don't need to know in order to make a decision to buy. So, an example of this for me was I had on the takeoff sales page a few times, I talked about startup. And the number one question I got in the first few launches was, I'm not technically in startup, but I haven't had any clients from online. Does that mean I can do the program? Now, if I didn't have that connection with those people in that first launch, then they would have looked at the sales page. If that was all that they had to go on, they would have looked at the sales page and gone, I don't think it's for me because I've been in business for 20 years. It's just that I don't have online clients right now. And they would have disappeared and they would never have purchased the program. But because I had outreach emails that invited people to reply, I ran live webinars, I had Q&A sessions on my Facebook page, I got all of these questions, and I could see that even though I was talking about starting up with online business, right, moving online, those sorts of things, people, when they saw the word startup, assumed that it wasn't for someone who was experienced in business. So I was able to adjust my sales page and say, if you're not yet getting clients from online channels, this is going to be a program for you. And I can even have in the FAQs, a frequently asked question that says, look, I've been in business for 25 years, but I haven't got clients from online channels consistently yet. Will this help me? And I can give a more detailed response there. And if someone is in that situation, that's really going to connect with them. And it's going to help to overcome that objection. I would rather have some connection in the sales process and know what people's objections are than to have a sales page have hundreds and hundreds of visitors and all these people disappearing and I don't know why they didn't buy it. And yet so many people would prefer it the other way around because we don't want to face up to the rejection. We don't want to have to actually make the pitch. We don't want to have to do the selling part of it. But honestly, that is the part that gives you the information that you need for the automated sales process to actually work. So especially in the first few rounds, keep connected in that sales process. And then trap number 5 is killing your cash flow. And this is the one that I did. So when I launched the Takeoff program, my VIP package was $2,500. And it only took me a couple of hours to get a $2,500 sale because I was posting on social media. It took me about 20 minutes to 25 minutes a day, 5 days a week to post on social media and connect with my audience, send out my newsletter, and I did sales conversations. That's how I made my sales. And it did not take me a lot of time to be able to do that. I didn't have complex sales funnels. I didn't have a bunch of stuff. I once a month started running webinars once I'd got that proof of concept of what people were buying from me. But it was really quite simple and straightforward for me to make that one-to-one sale. And so in a few hours, I could have a $2,500 sale. But of course, I did get to the point where I didn't really want to take on any more one-to-one clients. So I created the Takeoff program. And in the first launch of the Takeoff program was $398 early bird and $598 full price. I was working with a launch mentor, a very well-known one, and they made it sound like people will just buy it because it's a course and it's going to be amazing. And there was not a lot of insight into conversion rates and lead magnets and all of those sorts of things. So I honestly, when I launched the Takeoff program the first time, I thought 50 people or more would buy it. 50 people or more. That's why I priced it that way. It was like, if I got 25 sales at $398 and 25 sales at $598, then, that's going to equal, around a 20K launch, and it's 20K month. And then, next launch I'll get 100. And then the next launch I'll get 200. Because that's how easy those people made it sound. That's how easy they made it sound. And so when my first launch had 13 sales and I made about $4,000 in that month, I was a little struck. I was like, oh, not only that, I'd been telling a lot of people that I'm not taking on any more one-to-one clients now. I'm really booked out. So the only way to really work with me is in my group program. So I dried up all those one-to-one sales and my launch didn't go as well as I thought it was going to go. So once the launch was over, I was deep in delivering to the Takeoff students because I ran live calls every week for that group as Q&As. And so the next month I had an $800 income month and I killed the cash flow in my business. It took me 4 months to get back to a 5-figure month in my business. And it was 4 months of work. And then I thought I'd make another group program and I did it again. I killed the cash flow again. As I said, I make mistakes so that you don't have to. We want to be very mindful of cash flow when it comes to moving into a leveraged product in your business. Now, there are 2 ways we can do it. Number 1, we can make sure we've got definite proof of concept. We know predictably what your income will be from the launch. There are ways that we can do that so that you know what your launch income is going to be. And then the second thing that we can do is before you go into leverage, making sure that you've built up a buffer of money, business savings so that it will hold you steady if that launch doesn't perform as expected. But in all cases, I just want you to think about, we have all these assumptions that if I can get 10 people to buy at $2,500, well, then surely I can get 100 people to buy at $250. And that's not true. It's just not true. Supply and demand like that doesn't correlate. It doesn't correlate that way. So, when I go out and do a launch of a $500 product like I did last year, I got around the same conversion rate as when I launched the Takeoff program at $2,500, about the same conversion rate. And the price point is very different because price is not the main driver of decision-making the way that we think it's going to be the main driver. So if you convert, see what happened for me was I was converting 60% of sales conversations into VIP work with me as $2,500. So I thought, well, if I get 60% conversion into $2,500, then I'm going to get more than that into $398, surely, right? but it was completely different. And launch conversion rates are different to one-to-one conversion rates. So just be mindful of your cash flow and don't make assumptions about your audience's desire to buy a lower ticket item, your audience's belief in the value of working with you in a leveraged way, right? We just want to do as much as possible, get proof before we move forward. Prove before you move. Nail before you scale. Yeah? So they are my 5 traps to watch out for. Building based on theory, pricing dysmorphia, focusing on your own drivers only, disconnecting from sales, and killing your cash flow. Now, with all that being said, I don't want this to put you off leverage. Leverage is sexy. Oh my gosh, working in a leveraged way is amazing. It's absolutely amazing. And when you are conscientious and conscious of how it works, you can snowball so quickly and you can get to the point where your group stuff outperforms your one-to-one stuff in terms of cash flow. You can get to the point where you're making tens of thousands of dollars. Absolutely. But it doesn't often come in the first launch. And if you put that kind of pressure on the first launch, you sometimes make the launch worse off than it would have been if you'd taken the pressure off it. Now, I've got some great news for you. Coming up very soon, I'm going to be running a live workshop called the Quick Course Launch. And in that, I show you how you, in just 2 weeks, can create and launch a leveraged product in your business. 2 weeks. 2 weeks. Now, you can, if you listening to this when it first comes out, you can come and join it live. I'll have the link in the show notes. But if you're listening to this a little later down the track, don't worry, because with the show notes of today's episode, I'll also have a link where you can go and grab the recording afterwards. So remember to go to tashcorbin.com/324 and I'll have the links there for you. And until next time, thank you so much for joining me for this episode. I cannot wait to see you leveraged and I cannot wait to see you shine. Bye for now. Would you like more tips, tools, and resources to help you grow your heart-centered business? Head to tashcorbin.com today.